He's the most electrifying wide receiver in college football, but could Jeremiah Smith be the best player in the country? Mel Kiper Jr. has the answer, an extensive breakdown on the Buckeyes. Blue chip is coming your way. Is this his first draft? And we start right now. Welcome back into First Draft. Thanks everybody watching here on the NFL on ESPN YouTube channel or listening to us wherever you get your podcast. He's the man that needs no introduction. He's Mel Kiper Jr. My friend, I've missed you. It's been a week. How was the week that was?
Week was great, Field. You got wide receivers today. You put quarterbacks to bed for now, and a lot of these quarterbacks will be throwing to some really good wideouts, Field. And we've been waiting, it seems like, forever for this top guy to be draft eligible, and finally is. And in a year where we got transfers moving to other schools, guys that moved last year to another school, which is what the college football has become, this wide receiver group is going to be a lot of fun to watch throughout the rest of the season.
Some housekeeping notes before we get into a Jeremiah Smith deep dive, which will be extensive, and we've got other wide receivers that you need to know. Mel alluded to some that were on the move this offseason. A heads up that we are with you once a week until September 14th. Then we go twice a week, which is twice a week throughout the NFL regular season. We get back into our studio in January. We cannot wait for what's ahead. It's a massive, massive draft, Mel. We want to make sure that we serve our audience as it deserves to be served. This is our second episode in our return to action. If you're looking for our entire library, scan the QR code that should be on the bottom of your screen. Last week we hit on the quarterbacks that you need to know, but Mel, let's start here. Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State is going to be the undisputed number one wide receiver on everybody's big board. Before we get into where he ranks on the overall big board for this year's class, I think the more pertinent question is, in your many, many years doing this, trying to calibrate where you were in a player going into his presumed final season of college football, where might Jeremiah Smith stack up with some of the all-time great wideouts that you have studied?
He's going to be right there. In fact, going in, like you said, for a freshman year, if he would have been eligible then, where would he have gone Field in the draft? Way up there.
Yeah.
Where would he gone year two? Every year we keep saying if Jeremiah Smith were in this draft, he would be a guy. Would he take him ahead of this quarterback? It's a little iffy. What would you do here? Even though you don't need him, would you still take him? He's that good. And to now have him draft eligible, you were throwing teams out there. I said, hey, any team would want Jeremiah Smith. The Julio Jones comp is always going to be there for Jeremiah Smith, and there's a lot of other hosts of other receivers you can look at him as. But we've been waiting for this moment. And fortunately for Jeremiah Smith, because like I say, I don't like the rule of 3 years. I never have. If you're ready to come out of high school and go into the NFL and they think you should be able to. Sure. Yeah. Okay. But this is collectively bargained between the Players Association, the NFL, that forces these kids to be in college for 3 years, risking injury, like Jeremiah Smith will do again this year at Ohio State with Julian Sayin throwing the football, and certainly not having a Carnell Tate. We'll see who steps up. Is it going to be Brandon Ennis? Is it going to be Chris Henry, the true freshman? Somebody's going to have to help him out, right? And Tate was a great number 2 option last year. But for Jeremiah Smith, finally, we hope he gets through this year healthy, and he will be, if not the first pick overall, because obviously when you think about where we are with quarterbacks, they supersede everything, but he's got to go within the top 2 or 3, just if he plays up to the level of talent and level of ability we've seen over the first 2 years.
Mel, I think that one of the biggest winners of the upcoming NFL draft will be the team that's in the position that Tennessee was in last year, which is picking really high, but not being a part of the quarterback conversation whatsoever, right? Tennessee wasn't going to take a quarterback at number 4, no matter how the board fell. They had their guy in Cam Ward. The Raiders took Fernando Mendoza. The Jets would have taken Fernando Mendoza or a quarterback if they merited that second overall pick. Same goes for the Cardinals. It just wasn't that year in terms of quarterback prospects. If somebody is like Tennessee this upcoming year, picking 5th, but not needing a quarterback, it's going to mean a long regular season ahead, but it's a huge win because Jeremiah Smith is that good. He's 6'3". He's 223 pounds. And Mel, you know how when you're looking at players' weights or heights on rosters, especially before they actually get to the combine, you always see it and you're like, really? Like, I'm really supposed to believe this guy is 6'2" and 210 pounds? Jeremiah Smith is all of 6'3" and 223 pounds, Mel. He's had an NFL body for multiple years now. He looks, you said Julio Jones, that's the comp that will continue to come up. He is absolutely shredded, Mel. The production has been there. The accolades have followed. twice the Big Ten Receiver of the Year, a unanimous first-team All-American last year. He was a first-team All-American in 2024, not of the unanimous variety, but back-to-back years. And you think about all the great Ohio State wide receivers, Mel, and there's no shortage of them in recent memory or historically, right? We've had 4 straight years with an Ohio State wide receiver going in the first round. When you go back, you've got great ones, Joey Galloway and Terry Glenn and David Boston. The list goes on and on and on, right? Of first-round Ohio State wide receivers. Plenty of great wideouts from there. Jeremiah Smith will probably shatter every record in the Ohio State receiving book. He's 5th all-time already in receiving touchdowns through 2 seasons. He needs 9 more to tie Chris Olave for first ever. He's 5th all-time in receptions, just 42 behind Emeka Egbuka. He's got 205 for his career. He also needs just 310 receiving yards to tie Emeka Egbuka for the most receiving yards ever. So in a great school, Mel, this guy clearly stands above the rest. He is that special of a player.
Yeah, I feel he's done it all. I mean, he's got to catch over 50 yards in a ton of games. The thing that he doesn't do, which he's not going to do, he's not that kind of player. He's not going to be elusive after the catch. He's not going to make people, he's going to run through you. He's going to power through you and run over you. He's not going to run around. That's the thing. He will on the occasion, but he's not going to be a make people miss elusive guy. He's a big, strong, physical, fast. Drops are few and far between. As I said, when you look at him and you go to the competition, I look at the games, he put up big numbers just about in every game. Like I said, a reception of 50-plus yards in 10 games over his first 2 seasons. I mean, they know, having Carnell Tate really helped because Carnell Tate went, 4th overall, right? Sure. So, and, he's the kind of guy, you look at this year, will it be Henry? And it's who would it be to take some of that pressure off? So Tate really did affect defenses because he was really, really good. And Jeremiah Smith's the superstar. Yeah. So to me, who will be that guy this year for Julian Sayin to help out Jeremiah Smith? Like I said, the only thing is you can nitpick and say he's not going to be that guy after the catch in the NFL to do some of the damage because running through and running over in the NFL, not college, where a lot of these guys will not be playing football if their college careers are over. So for Jeremiah Smith, I say, hey, 2nd, 3rd, 4th pick. We don't know if this quarterback group is going to be fantastic or they're going to fizzle again because they fizzled last year. So when we talk about these quarterbacks, let's just wait and see. Does Arch become Archman, clear-cut #1 pick overall? Does Dante Moore say, hey, I'm right there with Arch to vie for the #1 pick overall spot, and all these other quarterbacks, they jump into that 2, 3, 4, 5 spot. Then all of a sudden, Jeremiah Smith becomes the 5th, 6th, 7th pick because all these quarterbacks that we talked about that fizzled now become phenomenal and fantastic, and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and the team's picking 1, 2, 3, 4, all could use that quarterback. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these NFL teams perform because we're going to be monitoring that field to see, okay, who's in the top 5 right now as we get to Week 6 in the NFL, right? Then we get to Week 10. Let's just keep an eye on who those teams are and how those young quarterbacks are doing with those teams to show that they are the guy or they aren't the guy. So that's going to be a key thing to watch when we talk about where Jeremiah Smith, based on rating, may be #1, #2, #3, but does he drop a little bit because of obviously those quarterbacks?
A few further thoughts there, Mel. Yeah, I don't think that he will be, to me, it would be a surprise if he's not the first non-quarterback taken, right? I know that we have an entire college football season ahead, but it would take something remarkable from somebody else, and it would take probably an injury from Jeremiah Smith for him to not be the #1 non-quarterback off the board. I think the other part of the conversation here, Mel, is I am always going to lean towards a quarterback that I believe should go #1 overall as the #1 player on my board. It's the most important position in sports. The quarterbacks drive winning more than anything else. But going into the season, no quarterback has established himself enough for me to say that the #1 player on my board is anybody other than Jeremiah Smith. Do you agree with that?
Right now, I would agree with that. I think when we get into, like I say, that's why it's going to be fun to monitor those quarterbacks and the teams in the NFL who could be picking high because it kind of works hand in hand and it affects Jeremiah Smith. So it's going to be a layered discussion field with quarterbacks, teams picking there because Jeremiah Smith is an elite player. Like I said, you can certainly make a strong case. And this is another year to go. We'll have to see how he performs without Carnell Tate being there. But based on the way what we've seen, certainly he's going to be other than the quarterbacks, he's going to be the talk of the town.
Yeah, Mel, and by the way, just on the skill set a little bit further, 6'3", 223 pounds, can absolutely fly. It's the power, right? You mentioned he's not going to be the guy that wiggles his way and weaves his way through defenders, right? Instead, he's going to be running over defenders. He is going to run through arm tacklers. He's going to break tackles. You're going to get a guy who takes a slant and takes it the distance because guys simply cannot bring him down. He looks like a tight end or a defensive end out there in terms of stature. The hands are excellent. He makes spectacular catches using that frame, out leveraging defenders down the field. He tracks the football very well down the field, Mel. Everybody knew where the football was going last year, and they still couldn't slow down Jeremiah Smith. He's accomplished all that he has, and we mentioned how close he is already to Chris Olave and Emeka Egbuka. Those guys both played 4 seasons at Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith has played 29 games, 2 years at Ohio State. For a school known for its wide receivers as much as any other besides perhaps LSU, Jeremiah Smith is the gold standard of Ohio State.
I'll just say one thing. The word embarrassing, right? He can embarrass you if you don't bring it. And what do defensive backs sometimes lack a little bit? Physicality, tackling,
business decisions, right?
What did John Gruden always screamed us into meetings? Oh, you can't play with 10 guys. You got 11 defensive players. Those corners have to be able to tackle, right? So corners that you better bring it because you're going to be when that you go up and the tape, they say eye in the sky never lies, right? And you're sitting there and you're watching yourself get steamrolled by Jeremiah Smith. There can be some embarrassing moments. So if I'm a corner safety, I know when I play this guy, once he gets to the NFL, and these college kids, they get a free pass. When you get to the NFL, you can't be embarrassed and have Jeremiah Smith make you look silly. And he can do that the way he powers through all those tackles in college football.
Hey, Mel, by the way, his 2 best games of last season were the 2 games against the best competition of the year. Ohio State lost both of those games because of its offense. But Jeremiah Smith against Indiana, 8 catches, 144 yards. Against Miami, 7 catches, 157 yards, and a touchdown, right? This guy's a big game player, as you referenced earlier. Clearly the favorite to be the first non-quarterback taken next year. I think the comparisons as far as grades go are going to be in the breadth as Calvin Johnson all the way back 20 plus years ago. He's that special of a talent is Jeremiah Smith. Not the only one, though, Mel. So let's dive into some of the other receivers. Was it 2000? And what was the year that Julio came out? 2011 was Julio Jones? No, 2000 prior to that.
You're much better on that look back than I am, Fielding.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna forget the year. Whatever year Julio Jones came out into the NFL, he came out the same year as AJ Green, right? Was that correct?
Hey, yes, it was. That was correct. But it's funny when I always talk now, I think it's like 5-6 years ago, and guys like, no, that was 20 years ago or 18 years. I think some was just recently, and the guy's been in the league for 10 years, 12 years. It's crazy, Field, how the years fly by, which makes it really affect your whole mindset about how far you think you have to look back. But yeah, AJ Green. And remember, Julio Jones, Atlanta traded, I believe, like from 27 up to way up there. Remember to get him
27-6, Mel. And the reason why I invoked that.
Yeah, to go way. When we ever see that? When you go way up there to get a player like that, and it certainly paid major dividends for Atlanta and Julio Jones. But this kid Jeremiah Smith, like I say, we finally have him in the NFL draft come late April.
So back in 2011, we did have the year correct. Thank you to our producer Joe G for confirming that. Julio goes 6th overall. You mentioned the trade up. 4th overall was AJ Green. Our colleague Jordan Reed has talked about how there's a little bit of an AJ Green versus Julio Jones nature to Cam Coleman, who we'll talk about in just a moment, and Jeremiah Smith. Right now, though, Jeremiah Smith leaps and bounds ahead of Cam Coleman, but the now Texas wide receiver who came there after 2 years on the plains at Auburn, Mel, big, silky smooth wide receiver. What do you like about his game?
Well, I'll tell you what, you're coming from Auburn, now you're with Arch, right? Now you're with Arch. And all that talent that he has, and we talk about he's got it all. Cam Coleman can be, when he came out, he had that high grade, that elite grade. And at Auburn, obviously, they got to work for some receptions. Now with Arch, that's the thing too. Arch has got to be more precise, more accurate. And is Cam Coleman going to allow him to take that next step and become the number 1 pick overall, the clear-cut number 2 guy, or say, hey, he's still a little overrated, overhyped. So Cam will work to Arch. Arch will work to Cam because Arch has to improve in those areas. Cam obviously needs a quarterback like Arch when we put the potential what Arch can be. So going to Texas, ideal. Got a couple running backs stepping in that transferred in. They kind of got that offensive line figured out. They believe to be elite. Okay, they got brought in some tight ends via the portal. Everything checks box after box after box for Cam Coleman to be a top 10 pick come late April. And there should be nothing holding him back. And that will allow Arch to be that guy if Cam steps up and becomes, like I say, that guy's right behind Jeremiah Smith, which is what you would expect to happen. Jeremiah Smith, number one receiver, way up there. Then Cam Coleman right behind him as the number 2 overall receiver on the board.
Let me give you a few more traits that I like out of Cam Coleman. He is an easy accelerator. It is no effort for him to get up to his top speed, and his top speed is very, very good, Mel. I mean, this is super fast. Run away from you fast in the open field. He can do some of the short area stuff as a receiver. I think that was perhaps a bad reflection of the Auburn offense, but he's not simply a guy that has to go all the way down the field. He just, because of his speed, he's going to force defensive backs onto their heels. He's going to draw defensive pass interferences. The speed is all very good. There's more to his game besides just the speed, Mel. The downside here for Cam Coleman that we have seen through 2 seasons is he has to be more reliable as a catcher, right? 7 drops in 2025 alone. And he's not, unlike Jeremiah Smith, he's not superhuman in terms of mass or power, right? This is not a guy who's going to run through you, which I think is part of the reason why we're talking about the Julio Jones versus AJ Green type comparison. And through 2 seasons, you can say this is a byproduct of the team and the offense he played in. He had 8 games during his time at Auburn, Mel, with 2 catches or 1 catch. So he just wasn't a factor as consistently as Jeremiah Smith has been for Ohio State. So something to prove here for Cam Coleman.
And that's why I feel it's important to note we have 2 interesting cases here. Yeah. Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, now Arch Manning, right? Yep. We had Archie Manning. So we got all these Mannings that were great. Arch, to be great, has to improve in areas. Cam Coleman, to be right there on the heels of Jeremiah Smith, needs to become a great receiver, which at Auburn, obviously, you can talk about the quarterback play. You can talk about Cam Coleman need to becoming a more complete player, more consistent player, whatever you want to talk about there. But if these 2 players come together and become elite, that's why Texas is kind of national championship or bust. And I think I'd bet Oregon with Dante Moore and all those other players. I really believe for Sark, for Arch, for Cole, for Cam, for all those other players they brought in, the 2 running backs, to me, this is Texas. Texas and Oregon are the 2 teams you would say, boy, national championship, or you're going to be ripped. You're going to be ripped. Sure. There's nothing less this year than win a national title, or at worst, play for a national title if you're Texas or you're Oregon.
Let's move over to a player that also plays his college ball in Alabama, where Cam Coleman used to, and that's Ryan Coleman-Williams. He adopted the Coleman to his hyphenated last name, Mel, after previously going by Ryan Williams. This is an interesting player. He arrived to Alabama as the can't-miss wide receiver, the guy that was supposed to be in the conversation with Jeremiah Smith. He's also an incredibly young player, 17 years old for the entirety of his true freshman season. He won't turn 20 until February now. So if he comes out, he'll be the youngest player in the NFL in the 2027 season. He's not this superior size in terms of like Jeremiah Smith and even Cam Coleman's length. What do you like and what gives you pause right now about Ryan Coleman-Williams?
I love the kid coming out. I loved him freshman year. You talk about he didn't have any drops. He had 48 catches. He averaged 18 yards a catch with 8 touchdowns. There wasn't a lot. Now, size-wise, Jeremiah Smith, as you mentioned, an elite physical talent. Yep. Ryan Williams, when he was Ryan Williams, was spectacular. And there wasn't a lot separating him. You know, kind of like to say diminutive dynamos, right? Just an unbelievable player. Sure. I don't know what happened last year, Field. I watched him, and you referenced, was it 13 drops?
So our charting has him as 18 over the first 2 years, 10 last year, but drops can be one of those things.
Yeah, drops are one of those things. Like I said, I think the number 10 plus, 13, whatever it was, there were so many, and it was happening with regularity. And it was not catches that were some were tough grabs. You say, I'll give him a pass. They were balls that it almost looked like it got into his, it was like a mind thing. Like something was, he didn't look natural catching the ball. I don't know what went wrong there. It just looked like a completely different player. 3 or fewer catches in 5 of the last 6 games. Drive killing, drops. He's got to revert back to that form of his freshman year when he looked like a guy was going to be right there. We talk about Cam Coleman being right there on the heels of Jeremiah Smith. You know, Ryan Williams is going to be right there on the heels of Jeremiah Smith throughout his career. He fell way back. And I know the late, great Raymond Berry always said, I got a Raymond Berry plate in my office, Field. And Raymond Berry, one of the best wide receivers in the history of this game, said if you get your hands on the ball, you should catch it. That's a Raymond Berry quote. You get your hands on the ball. I don't care if it was a 95-mile-an-hour fastball thrown to you. You get your hands on it, off target, whatever. You get your hands on it as a wide receiver, you got to catch the ball. That was Raymond Berry. And they're supposed to catch. If you can't catch the ball, you can't play a wide receiver in this league. And in this league in the NFL, drops destroy drives. I mean, Jerry Jeudy had a ball was right here off his pad, intercepted. Not only are you dropping it, you're letting it be caught and defend an interception by the defender. Ryan Williams, Coleman, you gotta revert back to that form, or else you're going to drop. So you either get back into that first round mix, or what do you do, Field, if the drops continue?
He won't go in the first round is what's going to happen, Mel, because he's not as big as the other two players. He's not as physical as Jeremiah Smith. There are going to be questions about the toughness, both mentally and physically, if these drops continue, Mel. I like the fact that you asked me, what did Raymond Berry always say? Mel, when do you think Raymond Berry's last season in the NFL was? I don't know offhand, but it was it was decades ago, right? So I didn't know what Raymond Berry said personally off the top of my head. He's polarizing, is Ryan Coleman-Williams. Well, it's a big year for Alabama, I think, across the board, right? A big year for Kalen DeBoer. I know we got that new contract, but still, I think there are people that are still wondering, what is the future of Alabama football without Nick Saban? And Ryan Coleman-Williams is one of the players that can help define what the future of Alabama football is.
And who's the quarterback? I mean, you got two quarterbacks vying for that starting job, right?
Sure.
Russell and Mack, right? Mack
I think
knows
Austin
the offense.
Mack.
Russell's the highly regarded kid coming in. Yep. You got two guys throwing you the ball. Who's going to be that one guy? Is going to be just one quarterback that seizes control of that offense and maintains that position? Or is it going to be a revolving door? What's going to happen there at quarterback is certainly going to impact him as well this year.
It is a massive, massive year for Ryan Coleman-Williams, who is explosive as all get out. When the football is in his hands, Mel, he can really go. He's a very airy, natural athlete. Just needs to be a way more consistent player. Let's go to a guy, Mel, who in this small sample size of targets looks like a baller. And 2026 could be the year of Charlie Becker in the Big Ten. Indiana wide receiver who last season, Mel, had a total of 34 catches. But amongst a group of clutch receivers, was anybody more clutch for Indiana in the late season, the playoff push, than Charlie Becker? Because he was sensational.
No, he was amazing. And you come out of nowhere, 0 catches, special teams guy to 34. Yep. You talk about what he was doing in the critical games. And, for Fernando Mendoza, the body control, the hands. Look, what did he average per catch?
19.97 yards per catch.
I mean, people say
20 yards.
He can run. What's he going to clock, Field?
Oh, he can fly.
What's that 40 time going to be for Charlie Becker?
Right? That's got to be somewhere in the 4.4s to high 4.3s, right? I mean, he can fly.
He plays that way, and to come on the way he did. And, you think about it, Surratt was banged up, right? Yep. Elijah Surratt banged up, gives him an opportunity with Omar Cooper Jr., and all of a sudden now he becomes a pivotal guy. Okay. And, Charlie B, right? Charlie B is the man now. And now you got Josh Hoover taking over, coming from TCU to Indiana. Quarterback taking over Fernando Mendoza. How will the quarterback play be there? You can't expect him to be Mendoza. Okay. But how good will he be coming TCU to Indiana? Indiana also adds a Michigan State receiver in Nick Marsh, who we'll get
Talk about him in a moment. Yeah.
Yes. So we got a little new cast of characters there, at wide receiver with Charlie B, right? Because you got Omar Cooper Jr. gone, Elijah Surratt gone, and in steps Nick Marsh. So again, and a new quarterback. But there's no question Charlie Becker, when you do your top 20, if you have a top 25 big board right now, he'd have to be on it.
He belongs right in that conversation here, Mel. I love the way that he and Fernando Mendoza developed chemistry down the stretch last year. Again, this was not a lot to work with. He played 444 snaps. So, Mel, do the math. This is a team that won 16 games, right? That's under 30 snaps per game for Charlie Becker over the course of the season. The body control, the instincts, the ability to time these 50-50 catches from Charlie Becker, so good. And that's vice grip hands, right? We were talking about this last week, Mel, when you make player comparisons. It's not, to me, valuable to say, hey, this guy reminds me of like a third or fourth receiver in the NFL. I talked about how Charlie Becker should be studying as much Mike Evans tape as he can over the next year, because while Mike's a first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion, Charlie, big, physical, excellent speed, excellent hands, some of the traits that we talk about with Mike Evans that have allowed him to become, to me, a future Gold Jacket player. Let's go down to Miami via 2 stops before, one of which was at Harvard and then at Duke. That's Cooper Barkate, your guy, Mel, who went with Darian Mensah down to the U. Everywhere he has been, he has flat out produced.
He has. And the family, I went back. Harold Barkate was a punter at UCLA. That's Cooper's father.
I didn't know that one.
He was in my 1989 draft report, which was Troy Aikman's year. Troy Aikman was on the cover. I went back and looked at that draft report because Harold Barkate was a good punter at UCLA. He was listed as one of the top punters. Not one of the top punters, but he was listed as one of the top 10 to 15 punters in the 89 draft. It was Harold Barkate, the father of Cooper Barkate. Cooper Barkate's sister, Maddie, an outstanding lacrosse player at Harvard. Yep. He goes from Harvard to Duke. Now to Miami with Darian Mensah. He's got that great, you mentioned the Mendoza-Becker synergy, right? Yep. How about the Mensah-Barkate synergy, right? And now you got Malachi Tony, who is spectacular. He's got to become, the Jeremiah Smith of college football, right? Could have come out freshman, and now he's a sophomore. We wish he was drafted. Malachi Tony has to go back for another year, right? Even though he's NFL ready. So you got Tony, the fear factor player. It's kind of like Carnell Tate, right? Carnell Tate had Jeremiah Smith. Now Cooper Barkate has Malachi Tony, right? Cooper Barkate, it was an outstanding player at Harvard. We want to see what he would do at Duke. He got it done at Duke, right? Yep. With that 6'1", 195. This kid's a football player. And like I said, you go back to his dad, Harold, the punter, sister Maddie, great bloodlines from an athletic ability standpoint. He's got Mensah. He's got everything sets up. I kind of think Miami's going to be right. That Miami-Notre Dame game at South Bend is going to be big time for huge Heisman Trophy discussions, seeding in the playoff, because we expect Notre Dame and Miami both to be in the playoffs. Now it'll be about seeding. But certainly Cooper Barkate is a really good, I think, going to be a really good number 2 option in the NFL.
Miami is so well set up for this new college football world, right? Because they have deep pockets and they have an aggressive group of supporters who I think wants nothing more than to bring back the glory. And they can afford to have a situation where until Darian Mensah's transfer status was resolved, they could just wait because they had confidence they were going to find a way to get a top-tier quarterback. That's what they do. You mentioned Notre Dame, Miami going to be a big game, Mel. It'll also feature another big-time receiver who I think is due for a breakout this year. That's Jordan Faison, who is one of my favorite players in all of college sports. I didn't say college football, Mel, because this right here is a multi-sport athlete. Jordan Faison was a star for Notre Dame as a true freshman during their national championship winning season on the lacrosse field. Right? This guy is an incredible athlete who could probably play in the PLL if he didn't want to play in the NFL. He's now focusing solely on football, Mel, and get the football in his hands. Jordan Faison makes good things happen. I love watching this guy play.
Yeah, I'll tell you, after the catch, physical player. That's why I brought up lacrosse with Matty Barkate, because I wanted to get you into your lacrosse guy field here in Maryland area. All about lacrosse.
I got my gear up there. Don't you worry.
Calvert Hall. My Calvert Hall back-to-back for Brian Kelly. It's got like 16 titles, back-to-back championships for Calvert Hall, lacrosse town here. But certainly for Faison, no question. You think about where Carr will be at the end of this year. Is he going to be in that discussion to be where we talk about with a guy like Arch Manning, like Dante Moore? Will C.J. Carr be thrust into that discussion to be one of the elite players in this draft? Faison will have a lot to do with that field, no question about it.
Yeah, he's a fun player, as you mentioned, Mel, after the catch specifically. A lot of his damage has been done, just sort of throw him the ball on one of these tear screens, these wide receiver screens, and let him find his way to navigate through traffic. No surprise, given his multi-sport background, he's a strong player, a difficult guy to bring down. This year, there will be more opportunity for him with no Malachi Fields at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's got other players who are going to step up as well, but 2 third-round pass catchers and Malachi Fields and also of course, Eli Raridan have made their way to the NFL. So Jordan Faison expected to take a bigger role this year in Notre Dame. Big week for Rutgers, or at least big recent times for Rutgers, Mel. Our guy, Jason McCourty, one half of the McCourty twins, recently named as a new analyst on Monday Night Countdown. And I'm sure Jason McCourty knows a thing or two about KJ Duff, Mel, who they tell me is a wide receiver, but if I saw him walking around the campus at Rutgers, you could tell me he plays defensive end, and I would not be surprised, because this is an LTPer out of Central Casting, KJ Duff.
Yeah, well, Ian Strong is now at Cal, right? Ian Strong was the other receiver at Rutgers. Now he left to go to Cal. KJ Duff stayed at Rutgers, 17.3-yard career average, attacks the ball. I'll tell you, high, low, doesn't matter. How do you match up with him, Field?
I put a defensive end out there and try to jam him. Maybe
I got 2 words for that guy. Good luck. Okay, good luck. I mean, KJ Duff. What would we be talking about? Can you imagine KJ Duff and Jeremiah Smith together?
Oh my God, no. Can
you imagine
pick
that?
Your poison. No, I can't. I mean, pick your poison is my only way to describe how you'd have to defend those two. The poison you'd pick would be KJ Duff because Jeremiah Smith is that good, but KJ Duff is no slouch.
Yeah, KJ Duff is as I say, and I look at my notes on him. Obviously, the size, the physical, attacks the ball, sure-handed. High, low doesn't matter. Contested doesn't matter. The big plays. And I think the fact he stayed at Rutgers, okay?
Yep.
He stayed at Rutgers. There's some loyalty there, okay? To me, this is turning outfield. When we talk about receiver depth and talent at the top, this wide receiver group, and the NFL's got to love it, with all these quarterbacks, if they are fantastic, and this wide receiver group does what we expect them to do, what do they want in the NFL? You're a fantasy man, Field.
They want productive wide receivers.
Ding, 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 ding.
Flowers.
You love those 28-24 halftime scores, right?
No doubt.
Halftime, 28-24. You love that, right? So this is what these receivers and these quarterbacks moving into the NFL after this year, if they play up to the level of their talent, will allow the NFL to be. Those over-under totals. We love those 50-plus over-unders going into a game, right? Those high-scoring games where you end up 41-38, 38-35. I love the 17-14, 13-10 game in 1970, but hey, now we got to adjust. It's 2026, and these receivers will be a big benefit, huge benefit to those points scored totals in the NFL.
Yeah, no, Mel, you're absolutely right. But more thoughts here on KJ Duff. You mentioned the strong hands. I would just say this, Mel. When you're that big, right, what bothers evaluators is when you have a player who has these unique physical tools and doesn't utilize them, doesn't maximize them to his best ability, right? I think you can make the case that's been the case so far for Keon Coleman at the NFL level. KJ Duff is listed at 6'6" and 225 pounds, Mel. Now, do I think he is a premier athlete? I don't. But I do think that he is functionally athletic enough at 6'6", 225 and powerful enough that he can play on the perimeter. He can attack the football down the field. And maybe the best catch, of course, I'm drawing a blank on what game it was, Mel, but the best catch that I saw last year was a KJ Duff one-handed catch down the offense's left sideline that I had to go back and rewatch 3 times to make sure it wasn't a drop and that my eyes deceived me. He is, boy, can that guy go. Let's wrap up here before we get into some honorable mentions, Mel, because there's a lot of them. Oh. But a wide receiver that you've already mentioned a couple of times who, you know what, before we get to this wide receiver, I want to make something clear. I don't think I was clear enough last time. And I know that you and I see this one differently, Mel. If I have a regret from the quarterback podcast a week ago,
okay,
our guy Joe G can track this one and send it to me later. So I expressed my optimism about Drew Mestemaker as the X factor of the 2027 NFL draft class. Mm-hmm. I got to be stronger than that here, Mel. I think that Drew Mestemaker has a real shot to be the number 1 pick in the draft when he comes out. Whether that's 2027 or 2028, I don't know. He's a young player. He's going to have only 1 year of power conference level experience if he comes out after this upcoming year at Oklahoma State. But I'm going back and I'm watching Wyatt Young. We'll discuss him in a moment, the new Oklahoma State wide receiver. And I'm still amazed by Drew Mestemaker. I think all the raw natural traits. This guy's a hooper. He's a distributor. He's got, I think, good enough size. Arm strength is all there. I am optimistic. My guy, Drew Mestemaker, plant my flag early. We're planting our flag in August. I can't wait to watch Mesty. It's going to be a massive year for him in Stillwater, Oklahoma. In part, Mel, because of his guy, Wyatt Young, who was 3rd in the FBS in receiving yards and yards after the catch last year. And this guy's got some serious game. I don't know how Eric Morris got both of these guys to North Texas.
Eric Morris has both these guys coming with him. And for Wyatt Young, first 5 games last year, 13 catches. Last 9 games, 57 catches. Drew Mestemaker was the former safety. You talk about punter in high school. What he was able to do last year, and as I said when we talked about quarterbacks, it's not just short stuff. I think that's one thing that's the misnomer of Mestemaker. He can get the ball down the field. And you want to see, again, when you talk about Wyatt Young and that number 10. So who also wears number 10 in the NFL? Would it be Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Kupp?
Would it be Cooper Kupp?
That's going to be one of them, Mel.
I look at this kid. He grew up. He was watching A&M. I remember it's Illinois, Texas A&M, watching the Aggies. Committed to Rice. Goes to North Texas. And to step forward with the guy and to watch him play last year. And I'll say the reason why you want to see the Oklahoma State for Mestemaker and Wyatt Young is because of the competition. Yep. But to see him after the catch, and we've seen a lot of guys that we're excited about when the ball's in their hands. Wyatt Young runs with purpose. He has that extra gear. He's got a great awareness and instincts on the football field. I love the kid.
Yeah,
I mean, there's not much. When you watched him last year, Field, I mean, he burst on the scene because we were watching Mestamaker, and he kept saying young. Mestamaker, it was young. Is it young may helping Mestamaker, Mestamaker home young? Now they're both with the Cowboys, and the level of competition for those guys gets ramped up dramatically, right? So let's see where Mestamaker is and where Wyatt Young is with this elevation in competition. That the guys you're working against now, that you were schooling last year, North Texas and the Mean Green. Now you're at Oklahoma State. So let's see on that. But I love what he put on tape at North Texas. Screamed, hey, he's going to be watched very closely by NFL scouts this year.
Obviously, a big transition for both he and Drew Mestamaker to the Big 12. But, you know, these wide receiver rankings begin with Jeremiah Smith. I think next up is Cam Coleman. You could convince me on either of Ryan Coleman-Williams, Charlie Becker, or KJ Duff next. But I think number, 5 or 6 is Wyatt Young. I think that highly of the player just based off what we have seen during his time so far at North Texas. Huge year. I'm optimistic. I might have to buy some Oklahoma State gear, Mel. What is it, the pokes? I got to throw these up. I might screw that up, but I got the pokes right here. These are not Windhorse fingers. These are pokes fingers for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Some honorable mention wide receivers here, Mel, and we could go through many more names than just this. But Mario Craver from Texas A&M, small, but my gosh, can he absolutely fly. Indiana wide receiver Nick Marsh, the new teammate for Charlie Becker. He comes over from Michigan State, 6'3", 213 pounds, big, powerful guy as well. Amarian Miller heads to Arizona State after 3 seasons at Colorado. He really produced first year out without Travis Hunter last year. Nick Harbor, who could be in the Olympics in 2028 as a sprinter from South Carolina. I thought he made dramatic strides as a wide receiver last year. He was very raw 2 years ago. And then Bryant Wesco from Clemson, smooth athlete, very athletic player, drops were a problem last year, and he got hurt in the 7th game for Clemson, sort of a scary head-neck situation. Sounds like he is full go at the time that you and I have this conversation. A lot to prove for not just him, but the entire Clemson program this upcoming.
Let me say this, Field, of all your guys you just mentioned, there's one guy that I'm excited to watch this year. That's Mario Craver.
Can he go or what?
Mario Craver at A&M, now with KC Concepcion with the Cleveland Browns. What I want to see is, do they let him return punts? KC Concepcion averaged 18.2 yards a punt return. He had a couple touchdown punt returns for touchdowns, 25 punt returns, 18 plus average. Do they allow Mario Craver? But he's had some injury issues. Mississippi State, Texas A&M last year late, a little banged up, right? So do you protect a 5'9", 180-pounder who wants to play like he's 6'3", 225, by the way? And he does. The strength, the ability to make people miss, yards after catch, the elusiveness, and the burst of Mario Craver was exceptional. And I'm looking at a kid now can skyrocket. And you mentioned top 3, top 5 receivers. Mario Craver, Marcel Reed's there. Obviously, Concepcion's in the NFL. This guy, will he return punts? Will he not? I don't care. As a receiver with a ball in his hands, you can use him on jet sweeps. He's going to be a guy. He can fly. He's matured from the Mississippi State days to what we've seen at Texas A&M under Mike Elko. He's matured. He said, hey, he's all about football. He's all about focus now. This kid is a big-time weapon, a big-time player who's been wide at Mississippi State, slot at A&M. Fun to watch. And like I said, if he can expand his game and become more of a punt return factor, which he has not been up until now. He was in high school, not in college. Let's wait and see on that. But boy, with the ball in his hands, Field, he is an entertaining, fun player to watch. Because guess what? 5'9", 180 does not tell you. And these defensive backs, they see him out there. Oh, I can hit it. You better tackle him. Forget about it. He will make you look silly. He will embarrass you. Jeremiah Smith will embarrass you in a different way than Mario Craver. But they will both make cornerbacks look bad if they don't bring it when they try to bring this guy to the ground.
Yeah, he averaged over 10 yards after the catch per catch last year, Mel. You find the football to Mario Craver, or Mario Craver finds the football. Generally speaking,
consistency. 2 guys you met, Marion Miller, be more consistent. Nick Marsh, be more consistent, get more contested balls. Those 2 guys, I think, for Nick Marsh, revert back to 2024 form. for a guy you talk about in terms of Amarian Miller going from Colorado to Arizona State. They don't know who their quarterback's going to be yet, right? So we'll see how, but he's got to become more consistent, more reliable. But the talent, 6'2", 215, in abundance. If Amarian Miller puts it all together, he's going to be way up there. And certainly Nick Marsh opposite Charlie B for Josh Hoover is going to be awful fun to watch as well.
It is a deep wide receiver class, Mel. That much we are certain of right now. And again, at the very top, we are talking about all-time star power in Jeremiah Smith. Before we let you go here, Mel, of course, we always like to wrap things up with our Orange Crusher of the Week. It's going to be the player that you believe, you brought one this week, deserves more national attention, not getting enough as of right now. Let's go to Champaign, Illinois, a school at the University of Illinois that has found a way to produce plenty of rock-solid pros. They have another one coming out of the secondary. Who is it?
Field, you surprised me with my Orange Crusher last week. I'm going to let this Orange Crusher roll on. We both had Orange Crushers last week. Xavier Scott from Illinois, coming back from that ankle injury for Brett Bielema, and that defensive secondary, so versatile. You can play him anywhere. He can tackle. He's got tremendous instincts and awareness. We're talking about that for some of these receivers. The instincts and awareness of this defensive back, Xavier Scott, but 11 pass breakups, led the Big Ten a couple years ago. He's intercepting passes. He's got a ton of starts, almost 28, 30 starts, played almost 40 games. This kid's a veteran. I believe he's 23 years of age, becomes 24 in December. He could have been in the end. If he'd have been healthy, he got hurt against Western Michigan in September with the ankle, right? Had surgery, I believe, like September 24th of last year. So he's almost going to be a year removed from that ankle surgery. Had he played all year at Illinois, he's in the NFL draft more than likely. Because if he's intercepting passes and breaking up passes the rate he did at Illinois prior to getting hurt early in the year last year, he's in the NFL draft. But he's back at Illinois. Great for college football. Great for the Illini and Bielema and the Big Ten. And another year to evaluate this kid. Stay healthy. This kid, with his versatility in that deep patrol with the Illini, I got to believe second round, third round, certainly day 2, Friday night, which is going to be, I believe, the end of April, because I think day 3 is May 1st, is Kentucky Derby Day this year in Washington, D.C. So that Friday night, second, third round, Xavier Scott plays up to the talent we've seen when he was healthy. He is a ball hawk. He is a guy, the burst, the see it field. They don't say you got to see it. A quarterback's got to see the field. He sees it. He recognizes. He's instinctive. Love to watch Xavier Scott for the Illini.
April 30th. I will be, let's see, I'm arriving to Mel's house April 24th for my stay the whole week, because I'm staying at the Kiper compound for the entire week with the easiest commute in the history of the NFL draft here for Mel. You'll be driving in each and every day. A lot of fun here as always, Mel. Next week, you and I are planning to unveil our top 10 prospects that we have studied so far this summer. You've heard some of the names. Jeremiah Smith will surely be on there. There will be quarterbacks on there as well, Mel, but other positions that we have not yet covered. And a reminder, we're back twice a week starting September 14th. In the meantime, subscribe to the NFL on ESPN YouTube page, like, rate, review wherever you get your podcasts. We deeply appreciate you. For the GOAT, Mel Kiper Jr., I am Field Yates. We'll talk to you again next week here on First Draft.